Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Law and Finance Show. And today we have a great guest on, and we're going to talk about, something that a lot of law firms probably don't really scratch the surface on until it's either too late or they just think that, hey, we'll never get there. And part of that is really what happens when you start bringing on non-legal staff into your firm. One of the benefits is you get people that can think about things before they become a problem, where they start thinking about the business side of the firm and not just the legal and the technical side of the firm. So I am excited about having my guest Mickey on. So stay tuned for today's episode. So without further ado, let me bring my guest, Mickey. Mickey, welcome to the show.
Hey, excited to be here.
Absolutely. Well, it is a pleasure to have you. I will say, one of I enjoy talking to a lot of lawyers and law firm owners, but I will say it is a joy because I'm not a lawyer. A law is being able to talk to other non-lawyers about, the non-legal side of running a firm, because I feel like so many lawyers are unprepared for what that entails. So I'm excited to have you on the show.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm glad to talk about some of this stuff. Personally, before I start working at a law firm, this is my first job at a law firm. So a little bit about myself. Was not working in law before, kind of fell into it. And it's definitely understanding where my legal team is at and then figuring out like the best way to support them to make their jobs the easiest and also to have happy clients.
Awesome, awesome. So you mentioned that, like I said, this is, your first venture into working at a law firm. Like, so what was your background before, coming into this role?
I've done a lot of different things. I am a musician, so I know we had briefly talked about that. We'll bring it up. I am a musician, so I was doing that, and then I was also working in tech at the same time. And this was like really like peak crypto period where like everybody was super excited about crypto, and so like I jumped into it too. And then of course, because it is crypto, things change very quickly. I lost that job, was expressing to my friend Elizabeth about it, who is the firm owner. And she's like, well, I've got a front desk position open. I was like, yeah, you know what, I will take it. And then start working with her, and then I started seeing all of these different areas of her business where she wasn't really paying attention to it, because she was one person running a 30-person law firm. So it was like very difficult. And obviously she's a lawyer herself. Everybody was legal. We had, I think, 4 or 5 different virtual assistants, but that was it. So because of that, like she grew her firm, to that size by herself, but then like she's gotten to a certain point where she wasn't able to grow it by herself anymore. So then I started like working with her and seeing a lot of different things that like she didn't see before, and making things more efficient. That was kind of like my thing. I was like, "Oh, why are we spending so much time doing this? Why don't we just do it this way?" And it's like, "Oh, it's automatic now. Awesome." So, made a big difference that way.
Awesome. That is amazing. I mean, it is. I will say, hats off to her for building it that
Yeah.
big, because I mean, not many people get to that size of a firm, and you know, and I think that's something that I've found that a lot of different lawyers tend to beat themselves up about, is that
Mhm.
as their firm is growing, they go to a conference and they hear about, well, you should be paying attention to this, you should be paying attention to this, and they just start beating themselves up to where it's just like,
Mhm.
how did she respond when you started pointing out, like, hey, here's some areas we probably should put a little bit more attention to? Like, how did she respond to that?
She was very open to it. Mainly first of all, we already had a relationship. We were already friends, so she valued the feedback that I gave her, and she was also very open to feedback. Her issue was that her team was not giving her feedback. Like they were scared to let her know what things were going on. So like she didn't know where to go. Like she wanted to grow and like she was stuck at like this kind of revenue mark, and like she hasn't been able to get past that. And so she was like, I really want feedback, and like her team wasn't really giving her feedback, maybe because like she's the boss or whatever reason. So when I came in and I saw like all these different things, I was like, hey, what about this? What about that? She's like, hey, yeah, let's try that. So some things, obviously, because like she saw the value in it, she was open to trying it out. And then other things, she was like, yeah, we can wait on that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll wait on it. So,
Nice, nice. Now, I'm curious for you. I mean, because one of the things that I find to be an interesting phenomenon is like when you're working with law firms, and a lot of times I think when you start bringing on non-legal staff, it's just
mhm.
how does the rest of the legal staff respond to some of the ideas and some of the change? Because it's like you're not a lawyer, so why do we need to change this?
Yeah, so obviously because they have been doing things a certain way, and they get comfortable. People just tend to get comfortable. They've been doing things a certain way, and as a lawyer, even though the case may be different, the way that you handle the case may be very similar. So, whether or not you're checking your emails in the morning or even how you receive mail, those all those kinds of things, like they get used to it. So changing that, I did get pushback at first. And what I ended up needing to shift within myself, because like, I would see something super valuable. I'm like, oh, look, this would make things so much easier for you guys. But if they weren't able to see that same value, or if they didn't see how they could make how it can make their lives easier, they would not want to make the change. And sometimes, we would have to make the change anyways because of like business needs. And then other times for certain things, I would present the idea to the team, ask them for feedback, and then they would give me their feedback, honestly, like, I don't think this is a good idea. What about this? And like, they'll bring up things that I never thought of. So then it helps me like reevaluate, like, okay, do we really need to make this change? Would it really make things easier? And if they're like, yeah, let's go for it, I'm like, cool, let's just implement it right away. And then just like, it'll make everybody's lives easier.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Now, I guess for yourself, I mean, how do you balance, like you said, you come from, that tech world and musician. So there is a world of creativity
Yeah.
and innovation that just is like almost constantly happening. Or let me say, it
Right.
is perceived that innovation is constantly happening in those two industries. But then when you get to, the legal industry, innovation is not always perceived to be happening. So,
Yeah.
how did you adapt to making that change?
I saw it as a challenge. I saw it as a way for me to help people in a way that they didn't even know that they needed the help with. My firm owner was also Elizabeth. And she was also like really open to making things easier because she's the type of person that wants to get things done and gets things done quickly, and that doesn't always happen in law. Sometimes like you want to get things done, and because of XYZ, however the system is set up, it just doesn't get done easily or quickly. So she was very open to a lot of the tech implementations. We also found out that like too many implementations at the same time would cause a lot of confusion for people. And our team was like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing right now. How am I supposed to do my work today? So a lot of lessons learned for myself in terms of, how to bring things to people and then have them receive it in a way that would make things easier for them. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Now,
Yeah.
have there been any, I guess you say, tech tools or implementations that you guys have implemented that the team has like that has really resonated well with the team?
Um, well, there's so here's the thing is what I've noticed is that it's always something small. Something very small and something that you feel like, "Oh, it might not make a big difference," but it really does. So, a couple of things that we implemented that I can think of is we started taking payments through Clio. So, that one shift from using a third party, um, like processor versus using something that automatically works with the system that we're using made a really big difference because we would actually have a lot of mistakes in recording, a lot of people saying like, "Oh, I paid this," and then we wouldn't have a record of it for whatever reason. Versus everything is automated. It's in the client's account. We don't need to do anything else. That has made a big difference, and it's also had people pay faster. So for anybody that's listening, if you use Clio, and I love Clio, so I will advocate for them. If you use Clio, please use Clio payments. It'll make your life so much easier because you do need to record these transactions with your clients anyways, and Clio will just do it for you.
Awesome, awesome. One thing I will add to that is I think it's amazing how you see, like I said, those little small changes because, most lawyers or most legal staff probably were not prepared to have a disagreement with the client about did they pay or didn't they pay. To where I
Yes.
can definitely see how them having to deal with that conversation could just really throw them off because they're just like, I'm here to advocate for the client, not to argue with
Right.
the client.
Right, exactly. So it's like my a big part of what I do in my job is to take everything that's not legal off of the lawyer's plates. So whether that's like talking about billing, whether or not that's talking about like some other kind of like customer service issue, like those kinds of things. And then like communication as well. So it's like, oh, I didn't get that email. And then like we're having a tech issue and that's why they didn't get the email and preventing the tech issue in the first place. So it's like implementation of new technology and also training people on how to use that technology too. So yeah.
Now, one of the things we talked about kind of before we hit the record button and started recording is we talked about, with having non-legal staff as you can start to look ahead as opposed to spending all your time putting out fires. So, like, how big is the non-legal team now?
Yeah. So before I came on, the non-legal team was we had an office manager, and then we also had a couple of virtual assistants. And they're in the Philippines and they do certain things, but they're not like someone that will make decisions and like prevent problems. Like they will just they do what they're told essentially. So now there is myself. There is also a director of operations. My title is business operations strategist. So we're both looking at operations and we're also looking at finance because Liz, she's really great at marketing and she's really great at being the CEO, making like those like final decisions. But some of these like day to day things and some of like the financial stuff, like she leaves that to me and Phil, who is the director of operations. So now that him and I are on board, we're reviewing the way that we're doing things and we are also looking at ways to you know, make things easier and prevent the fire instead of like having to put out the fire. I can't think of like a specific example, but it's even like things in terms of like the way that our business is structured. Before Phil came on board, it was Liz and then like all of the attorneys. So everybody was reporting to her.
Oh, wow.
And that was, she had, I think, 12 or 14 attorneys reporting to her. So it was a lot.
Wow.
And on top of people reporting to her and her having to manage, she was also going and, building the business itself. So one of the big structural changes that we had was we were bringing on a managing attorney. So this person ends up dealing with making sure the attorneys are getting their billables on time. They're making sure that they're on top of like the trust funds. They're making sure to handle like any customer service issues in regards to billing. Like, hey, I don't agree with how you guys billed me with this. And then, we have like a process where the client will line item by line item put out like the things that they don't agree with. We review it and then we double check like, hey, did we actually make a mistake here? Do we need to discount the client for that? And then go back and like let the client know like, hey, we can give you this much discount or this much credit for whatever it is. So having that person in place has helped a lot because she's been able to like manage versus like this one person that's like overlooking everything. So if anybody is out there, any lawyers that you're a firm owner, you're dealing with a bunch of different associates and you're getting to a point where like, oh my gosh, I don't think like things are slipping through the cracks, that's when you should definitely take a look at whether or not the structure of your team makes sense for you and the way that you want to grow your business.
Awesome. I think that's something that a lot of law firms don't think about, like that aspect of just, having someone who follows up on like, billing disputes. Because I was
Yeah.
recently reading an article and I think it was saying something north of 35% of law
Wow.
firms in this, survey. And I think they had surveyed like over 7,000 law firms. They said like 35% of them were saying that on a regular basis, they're having to spend time dealing with billing disputes and questions to
Yes.
where I'm just like, I don't think that's something a lot of law firms realize. Like, hey, this is part of the reality of running a firm. You're going to have this come up.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like that's before the managing attorney came on, that's what I was doing. So, I was talking to clients, talking to them about their billing issues. And because I wasn't a lawyer, I looked at it from like just like a customer service perspective. Because I've been in customer relations, I've worked in retail, for many years, and because I have that background, I brought it in to kind of deal with the customers because sometimes like they were not actually upset about the bill, like, they're just upset. They're going through a divorce. We're like a mainly family law, so, they're going through a divorce, they're stressed out, and they just need to vent. And
Mhm.
there's been several times where I will call the client, have these questions about and they have these things about their bill that they, wanna complain about, but then, like, after they complain, they just end up paying for the whole thing. So it wasn't like they had like any actual disputes. I think they just wanted to be heard, and a lot of times I think
Mhm.
that's what it is that clients want to feel heard about their concerns, whether or not
Mhm.
that's in terms of the legal or if that's in just the service that they're receiving. So
Mhm.
for those of you out there that are dealing with customer complaints, they it may it's probably not personal.
Yeah.
Probably not personal. And it's a way for you to look at feedback, like, are customers complaining consistently about the same thing? If they are complaining consistently about the same thing, how can you prevent that? One of the issues that we've run into is, our our policy in terms of billing is that there's an evergreen retainer, so they pay us a certain amount at the beginning. That amount stays in their account, and then they get billed for it every month. That doesn't always get communicated to them because we're very focused on like what's going on with your case, who's involved, how many kids you have, like all of those
Mhm.
questions. And that little thing gets forgotten about. And then they get a bill a month later and they're like, oh, what is this? Like, like, why am I getting a bill for this? I paid you at the beginning. So now this is the preventative part. We're going to the very beginning, like, okay, clients aren't getting this information. Sometimes the attorneys are very focused on the legal part of it. How can we bridge that gap? And so we're like, let's give them a welcome package, a welcome letter that talks about all of these different policies, how to pay their bill, what's
Mhm.
expected of them in terms of billing at the beginning versus, after they're already getting billed and they're like, oh, this came out of nowhere. So
Mhm.
it's like little things like that.
No, I think that is an excellent point. I've seen a very similar thing of like that, when clients know what to expect,
Mhm.
they tend to be a lot more cooperative as opposed to when they
Right.
feel like things are just coming out of the blue. It's
Yeah.
where it's like, hey, it may be right, but to them, it's just something feels wrong about this because I didn't
Yeah.
see this coming.
Right. Setting expectations at the beginning is really, really important. And sometimes, like, because we get so caught up in just what's going on in the case that some of these things don't get talked about. So, it comes up as like, oh, this is so totally out of the blue. How did this happen? So,
Awesome, awesome.
yeah.
Now, I will say is I would love to just continue talking to you about all these amazing things, but I want to be respectful of your time. So I have a couple more questions.
Sure.
This one I think is based on, being a non-lawyer and being on the non-legal staff within a law firm. Like I said, you have the benefit of understanding the business and its totality. And then also the benefit of being able to look ahead. Now, with everything that's going on in the economy and I mean with inflation, talks of recession, and it's just like, how are you thinking about that in terms of like, hey, maybe here's some topics or here's some areas we probably need to keep an eye on, considering that those externalities could come and affect us.
Yeah, this is definitely something that I've been thinking about. And because of the way that the economy is, one of the things that we don't advertise and we don't like put out into the like open at the beginning is payment plans. And it seems like such a small thing, like just offer payment plans. But that's something that I've thought about quite frequently because as the economy changes, people get scared about spending money, they get scared about paying their bills, and all this stuff. So it's really like thinking about like where our customers could potentially be at and how can we like be prepared for that before it actually happens. Even though like right now we are already getting some of that like pushback in terms of payment, people are paying a little bit later. They're asking for, longer terms, things like that. So, I've thought about that a lot and also thought about like how can we make sure our business survives through this storm essentially. So some of those things include, payment plan being one of them, making it easier for our clients to pay, and then also like kind of predicting, like in a sense, like what could people potentially need during this time. So like even offering resources like videos or like articles about like mental health or things like that, and then also being concerned in that way about the legal team too, because like even though like yeah our clients are dealing with this, but also like we are also dealing with it internally. So it's a matter of like what is work life balance for my team. Is it they're here Monday through Friday 9 to 6 because they feel like okay yeah I really want to be in the office, or is it like I'd rather not be in the office, I'd rather
Mhm.
be at home with my family, and like just like things like that, like thinking about what people could need or want during like a more difficult time, and making I think what was it I went to CleoCon and um I think it was what did Cleo say, it was something like a resistance proof or like something like that. I don't remember what it was.
Mhm.
It was great at CleoCon because they did talk about it at CleoCon too, that like there's a potential that things could be a little rough, and like preparing ourselves for that in a variety of different ways. For us right now, the way that we've been preparing for it is coming up with more flexible billing options for our team, and then like more flexible like working options for the team as well. So it's hopefully that can do as much as we possibly can. And then also like if we're providing payment plans to people, obviously they're going to be paying less. So
Yeah.
if they're paying less and our revenue is lower, how else can we make up for that dip in revenue? Do
Mhm.
we, do we go into other areas of law, or do we look at you know, other products that we could potentially offer to people that is still legal? So yeah.
Awesome. I love it. I think all those is some amazing things to think about, and I hope a lot of firms out there are listening. Now, you mentioned about the Clio conference. Now, the way that I met you was a friend of mine, said, and I completely missed the story. Well, let me say, I missed some of the details in the story because a friend of mine was telling me, "Hey, I was in this session, and this lady Mickey had some great things to say." And so in my mind, I was like, "Man, Mickey was on stage sharing some amazing." And so when I reached out, I was like, there's something you said there about a spreadsheet that you had shared that really like resonated with with a friend of mine. And she told me multiple times, Terrell, you need to connect with her. I
Oh my
was like,
gosh.
okay.
So if I remember correctly, what happened in there is that we were talking about KPIs just across, and KPIs are key performance indicators, and this is something that bigger businesses will look at, and they'll keep a track of. And for law firms, if you're smaller, solo, maybe just two, three, you may not be thinking about those kinds of things. And what they talked about is that you really should, whether or not that's like things like how many good customer reviews did we get this month, or the obvious one is the billable hours. How many billable hours are you putting in, and how much are we collecting on that? And so Clio, within the platform itself, has a lot of really great reportive information on things like that. And I think probably what I said, I think that probably resonated with her, was that one of the only things right now that we are keeping a track of for our team is their profitability. It is, how many billable hours are you bringing in? How many hours you work, and how much money is that? And that's great. It's cool. Of course, like our business needs to survive through that. And at the same time, like there's other performance indicators that doesn't look like it affects the bottom line, but it definitely does. And the big thing is customer service reviews. Like, this attorney, how many positive reviews did you get this week? How many negative reviews did you get? What are those negative reviews? If the client's not satisfied, not happy, why? Where could we have gone that would have gotten this client to be happy? Or were they one of those clients just wouldn't have been happy no matter what we did? Because those exist, and that's okay. You get to choose how much energy you put into those people. So I think that's probably what it was that I brought up that really resonated. Because it's very easy to get caught up in the numbers. It's very easy to get caught up in just those financial results. But we're dealing with people. This is a service industry. So if people are unhappy, if they feel stressed out, like that means other people will not see the value that you could potentially bring them, and they won't hire you. So even though, like, dollar wise you don't see that amount, very frequently it's always like, hey, I had this lawyer, they were great, you can hire them, they took care of me, and I felt seen, I
Mhm.
felt heard. So you can definitely trust them with whatever it is that you're dealing with, because it is very stressful. Like anybody that's ever been sued or if they've ever received a letter from a lawyer, they're like, oh my god, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. It's super stressful. And having people like have your back, and that they are going to advocate for you, is
Mhm.
really important. And that's not something that you can put like an exact dollar amount on. So that's
Mhm.
probably what it was.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I am glad that I got the story because I was gonna go around telling everybody, yeah, she was on stage, she was dropping knowledge and wisdom, and everybody was just in awe. So I'm glad I finally got the story right now.
Yeah, I wasn't really thinking about it when I shared that, but it was just like, okay, yes, we are definitely looking at billing rates, because that's kind of like the lifeblood of like
Mhm,
making sure everybody gets paid. And at the same time, it's like, we want to be able to look at performance in other ways, because there are
mhm,
some things that you just can't put a dollar on it. And like having somebody come back to you and tell you like, I felt so trusted, and I felt
mhm,
so seen, and I felt you were able to take care of me in my case. That's, you can't put a dollar amount on that. It's probably why we keep growing. Because that's kind of the principle of our team. Is the principle of our firm is that like we want people to feel like we are taking care of their case the way that we would handle our own case.
Nice, nice. So now, if people are interested in seeing, like I said, the awesome things that you're up to, where should they look for you online?
If you guys are looking to find me, LinkedIn is definitely the best place. So it's just Mickey Wong, my first and last name. You find me on LinkedIn, please add me. I'm very open to having conversations about this. I know that it's not easy building a firm by yourself. And there's things that you see as a problem that I see as a great fun challenge. So I'm very open to talking to anybody that listens to this podcast about it.
Awesome. Well, before we wrap up, the final question I love asking every guest is, if you were talking to someone and said, "Hey, you know what? I was on the Law and Finance show with Terrell, and you should go back and listen to my conversation I had with him. And hey, here are two big takeaways you should take from that conversation I had with Terrell." What would your two big takeaways be?
Ooh, two big takeaways. I think the first one is to see your clients as people and that there is like an authentic connection that you need to have with them to serve them well. Um, and then the second one would be make small changes. It doesn't need to be big. And like the small changes can make a really big effect on your entire team, and even on your own, work through your day to day. Keep things simple, care about people.
I love it. I love it. Well, Mickey, thank you so much for being an amazing guest and coming on today.
Thank you, Terrell. Thank you for having me. This was great. So much fun. Appreciate it.
If you're looking for ideas on how to manage and grow a profitable law firm, this Facebook group is perfect for you because every week we are featuring conversations with successful lawyers and businesses related to law firms on tips, ideas, and technology that are helping many people grow and manage a profitable law firm. So if you're looking for great tips and ideas, you definitely want to click the link below so you can join the conversation and be part of the Law Firms and Finance Facebook group.